Okay, let's kick off. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Gina Tiriakidou. I'm the head of marketing for Oasis Foundation. And today we have with us a group of amazing and talented women with accomplished careers in the blockchain space. They're going to be sharing their stories and tips with us. So we're really excited about that. We also have with us the Bigger Pie and American Tech, two organizations that are doing tremendous work when it comes to supporting young talent, students, and diversity in the blockchain space. And Oasis is a layer one blockchain project, very much focused on privacy. We ourselves have a very talented woman founder, Dawn Song, and she's coming from academia, so she has been working very closely with students, and she's a big supporter of mentoring. So it is our vision with this first event to be able to build a community with all of us and keep sharing ideas and helping each other. So it's really up to us to give it more legs. But today we're excited because we're going to be listening to different stories. The blockchain space is really exciting, but in the same time, it's super complicated. So I think we all can use a little bit of help and advice from people who know how to navigate these waters. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Kristina Cornèr. She's the acting editor-in-chief of Cointelegraph, and she's going to be the host and moderator of our event today. So Kristina, thank you so much for joining us, and I leave it up to you now.
Thank you very much, Gina, for the invite, and thank you very much for this amazing initiative for women by women. That's really exciting. In a few years, crypto and blockchain technologies have basically created a new sector within the tech space, and a lot of people joined the adventure in search of new career perspectives, financial rewards, new ideas for businesses, new contacts, new knowledge. But a lot of other people got justifiably overwhelmed by all that is happening in the industry, but the new realities, by the news, by the volatility of the industry, and didn't know how to find their place in this ecosystem. So I'm really happy to invite our first speaker, Kylie Ripasi, National Program Leader at America on Tech, who knows everything about training mechanisms and strategies of involving new talents into emerging industries. And she will tell us about new pathways into tech careers for the underrepresented.
Thank you so much, Kristina, and thank you all for having me today. I'm going to pull up some slides to talk a little bit about what we do at America on Tech. All right. Is it showing up, Kristina, for you, the slides?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay. As Kristina said, my name is Kylie. I'm a national program lead with America on Tech. We are here because, as an organization, because tech jobs are growing rapidly, especially in spaces like blockchain, a new industry within the tech ecosystem. Over the next decade, tech jobs are anticipated to grow more than 12%, adding more than 500,000 new jobs into the space. What is also interesting to note is that 77% of next jobs over the next 5 years will require additional tech skills, and 65% of Gen Z will be holding jobs that have not been invented yet, as is the case for technology in general. This is all, though, within the context that low-income populations, underserved populations are not being positioned to participate in this growing technology sector, and as a result, we are leaving young, talented people behind. America on Tech was started in 2014, seeing an opportunity to change this, to be able to connect young people in New York City as well as in Los Angeles now to opportunity in the tech space. Our mission has always been to prepare the next generation of technology leaders through technical skills building training. But the larger mission here is to decrease economic and racial wealth gaps in underestimated communities. We do this through creating employment pathways that often start at the high school level with our technical skill building programs for students between ages of 16 and 24. I'll note that most of our programs currently run for high school students, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, but we have a very robust alumni community that we also continue to support as they pursue degrees and careers in technology, which for some has started to include blockchain. Also noting that at a time when COVID-19 has disproportionately affected low-income populations across the nation, but also here in New York City and Los Angeles, our mission is of critical importance now more than ever, especially as tech jobs continue to grow despite the tremendous impact of the global pandemic. Our process and outcomes for programs fall under 4 main pillars. This is what we feel are best practices in this space to make sure that students not only have the knowledge to pursue jobs and degrees in technology, but that they also have the support to excel and pursue career placements that are meaningful and that they feel confident in. So not only do we develop technical skills in our programs, but we also embed soft skill opportunities for students that they are able to interview confidently, that their resume are up to par. We do this in all of our program content. We also embed mentoring opportunities into all of our programs. This connects students to technology professionals who become career coaches and mentors, starting at 16 years old in high school, but then throughout their career trajectory as well. We network with HR managers, other tech professionals, executives as potential hiring pipelines for our students, not only as high school students pursuing paid summer internships, but also down the line. And then access, we connect our students to professional internships, paid opportunities to apply the skills that they've learned in our programs for companies that are looking to support young people as well. What makes us unique? We are certainly not the only organization working to develop skills for students at the 16, 17, 18-year-old age level, but we are free, which is not the case for most organizations running in this space. For-profit versions exist, but they're financially inaccessible, and that remains another barrier for students looking to tap into this space. I could talk for hours on why there is still inequitable access to opportunities to pursue computer science and information science and technology systems starting at the school level and why that is. But the takeaway is that we will never charge for our programs. And in fact, this year we've adjusted our model to be able to pay students who participate in our programs, and acknowledging that traveling to a space after school or logging on to a computer for hours a week is a privilege. And so we want to make sure that students are compensated for the time they spend developing their skill sets to better their career pathways. Our curriculum across all programs that have been developed that are in development are industry aligned, and they are vetted by industry professionals. They are project-based, so students starting day one with us see the connection between the code that they're learning to write and how that impacts real-world application. We engage our corporate partners in unique ways, not only as funders, but they are the folks who are teaching our content in classrooms. They are the ones who are providing our students with summer internships after they spend a semester working with them, and then jobs down the line as well. We create jobs for our students, not just in connecting to jobs, but we hire back alumni to support our students, kind of doing that full circle mentorship model. So students who start with us at 16 years old, go through our pipeline of programs, enter college, pursue a computer science degree, come back and teach our curriculum to students or work with our students as mentors in the space. They are the ones who are vetting our curriculum in some cases and providing feedback on how we can better meet the growing demand and always adjusting demand in the tech space for students. And then of course, as I had mentioned, we place in internships and we place in jobs so that students are able to tap into the economic opportunity that the tech space can provide for them. Just a little bit about our students, and I know I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to skip this slide, but this is all over our website. I encourage you to take a look a bit more. Our impact thus far, so we started in 2014 as Brooklyn on Tech by our co-founders, Jessica Santana and Evan Robinson, who are phenomenal. Rebranded to New York on Tech a few years later, and then about a year and a half ago, rebranded to America on Tech via our expansion into the Los Angeles region. And so since 2014, we've served more than 3,000 students here in New York City as well as in Los Angeles. We've partnered with more than 70 high schools, engaged more than 100 corporate partners, enrolled more than 1,000 volunteers without whom we could not do this work. Proud to report that more than 85% of our alums are currently pursuing tech jobs or are placed in computer science and information science programs. And we've hired almost 70 alums back into our classrooms to serve as peer mentors since 2018, which means we just get to spend a little bit more time with them and see the benefits in that way as well. The last thing I'll just touch on is that we think that best practices in making sure students who are underrepresented in the industry have the potential to pursue it is acknowledging that this work does not exist in a vacuum, that the world has set up systems that are inequitable, that impact them on a daily basis, and that if we are not vocal in where we stand when those issues arise, then we are not doing best by students. So this is a response we put out back in March of 2020 with COVID-19 and our commitment to continue to support our students through that transition. And this is also a statement that we put out on Black Lives and acknowledging that we are not neutral on this matter and we stand against racial injustice, and this necessarily impacts the work that we do with our students on a daily basis. And with that, I will say thank you. I encourage you to check us out on our website or contact us to learn a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Kylie. And I invite everyone in the audience to leave your questions also to Kylie. I'm sure she will be happy to answer them. Thank you so much for this powerful message and for all the initiatives that you've been developing. I also liked how you formulated the topic, race, gender, and opportunity, because it's true that our race, our gender, our background, our skill, whatever, are all an opportunity. And actually, the moment when we consider that this difference of ours is bearing on us, this moment actually can be revealed to be our biggest opportunity ever. So I'm really happy to present my wonderful co-panelist at the first panel of today's event, and remind our audience that we crave your questions. So please leave your questions, comments. We'll be happy to answer them in the end of the panel and also after the event. Let's keep in touch. So I'm happy to present here Vanessa Grillet, Head of Portfolio Growth at Coin Fund. Hi, Vanessa.
Hey, how are you?
Excited. Oh, great. How are you?
I'm good.
Where are you joining us from?
Currently, I'm based in New York.
Awesome. New York, Italy here, Venice. Lisa Nestor, Senior Strategist at the Stellar Development Foundation. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kristina. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. And you are currently?
I'm also in Venice, but I'm in the Los Angeles, Venice, so out here in California.
Wonderful. Thank you. Maria Magenes, Senior Marketing Manager for Europe and Africa at the Maker Foundation. Hi, Maria.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Italy too, as you, but I'm in close to Milano, in a city called Pavia right now.
Nice. Two Italians, two Americans. Okay, let's go forward. Adeline Zhu, Chief Marketing Officer at Chainlink Labs.
Yes, I'm dialing in from the East Coast, so adding to the American quota here.
Awesome, across the Atlantic. And last but not least, Lane LaFrance, Product Lead at Daper Labs and CryptoKitties co-founder. Hi, Lane.
Hi, folks. Thanks so much for having me. I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Very nice to have you. Ladies, I'm pretty sure that your stories, your personal stories are all worth to be put in books. But if I can ask you to summarize your path and how did you find yourself within the space, what brought you here, and when did it happen? This is my first question to you. So Vanessa, I know that you've had experience with the New York Stock Exchange, with the regulators. How did you end up working in the blockchain space?
Great question. I would say a little bit by chance, a little bit by design. I had left the New York Stock Exchange and had started working for PwC, who was seeding a robo-advisor project. And I got onboarded on that project with the founder and to become the CEO. And we were fundraising. And my co-founder was very deep into crypto already at the time. And he said, oh, we should meet with Joseph Lubin, who is the founder of Consensus and one of the co-founders of Ethereum. And we should fundraise with him. At the time, this did not seem very logical to me because we were not at all having a crypto project. I had had exposure to Bitcoin, but had not really worked in the space. And we had the opportunity to meet with Joe, and I had the opportunity to dive deep into what Ethereum was and what it wanted to achieve. And it really triggered, you know, a switch in my perception of what the technology could do, in addition to already the existing Bitcoin capabilities. And so I just jumped board, and it was, you know, connectivity. We had, I was involved in Jacqueline Novograt's Acumen Fund, which he knew. And so we were aligned in terms of values and principles and what we wanted to achieve. And so, you know, since then I'm in the space and excited to participate and contribute.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. Adeline, was it a coincidence or a planned step when you joined the blockchain space?
Yeah, my background, I love emerging technologies. I love helping people make sense of them and be on the forefront of technology. And so I, prior to blockchain, had been in a series of fast growth tech companies, and I was actually had my own AI company focused on teaching people how to use machine learning, another emerging tech, and then stumbled upon blockchain. I knew the founders of Chainlink, and came on as the very first marketer. So it's been a wild ride to where we are now, Chainlink, multiple years later, and now deep in the blockchain crypto rabbit holes.
And it will be only deeper and deeper going forward. Maria, what about you? What is your path, and what did attract you in the blockchain technology in the first place?
So it's quite funny because since the co-founder of CryptoKitties is here, so my very first approach was a CryptoKitty. Then in my case it was more by chance, because I was looking for a job in Switzerland since for personal reason I wanted to move there, and I found out this company, blockchain company, working in the lending, which is Aave. Now, before it was called in another name, and then I started learning about Ethereum to make the job interviews with them, and I felt like, wow, this is like, I didn't know all of it, and I want to find out more. And then I fell in love, and I stayed. So it was 3 years ago. And now it's 3 years that I'm happily in the space, and I really like it. It's amazing.
Thank you, Maria. So Lane, we mentioned CryptoKitties. What was your journey toward founding CryptoKitties?
It was a little roundabout. I sort of got my first foray into this world when I was working as a director at an NGO called Let's, and we were dedicated to bringing education to emerging communities. And that was sort of the first time I really saw firsthand what happens when there isn't equal access to economic opportunity globally. And blockchain is obviously a really compelling component of solving that problem. So I ended up studying finance at UBC and sort of keeping that problem in the back of my mind. For a little while, worked at the company Axiom Zen, which is the now parent company of Dapper Labs, which created CryptoKitties. And it was there that I met Dieter, the co-founder of Dapper Labs and CTO. And he, over lunch one day, explained Bitcoin to me, and I was completely taken by this idea. So I moonlit as much as I could and learned as much as I could. I ended up working in Hong Kong for a little while and doing some marketing there, but meeting the world of crypto in Asia first, actually, before coming back to North America. And then by mid 2017, it was so clear that it was time to move into crypto. I wasn't really swayed by ICOs. I wanted to see people really grasp the technology. And so when I called the Axiom Zen team back and said, hey, I really want to do something in crypto, are you up for it? Can I come back? They said yes. A couple months later, CryptoKitties was born, and we never looked back.
Awesome story. Thank you very much. Lisa, I know that you also had some background in volunteering. So I would really like to know, how do you see the bridge between the humanitarian technology that is blockchain with your previous experience?
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more with the comment Lane made about blockchain having potential to really impact access to financial markets and economic participation. And that was definitely the lens that brought me into the space. I was a Peace Corps volunteer right out of undergrad, and through that work got involved with community banking, village banking, and just kind of started thinking about systems design and financial infrastructure. And so, you know, had really very low tech experiences. However, I had been doing volunteer work and research around financial inclusion and just kind of understanding the impact of financial access to you know, underserved populations. And so I eventually went and got my MBA. You know, never really thought I would go into the technology sector, but at school had a mentor, a professor in finance that I got really close with, who just happened to also be advising the Stellar Development Foundation. And so, you know, he actually told me about a year before I joined, you should check out this company. I think you would really like what they're doing. Like, the ideas are really big. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not interested in leaving my job. But then finally was introduced to Jed, and kind of without really needing, at least in the beginning, to have this super deep technical background, I could completely map this understanding of an open public ledger, giving people access to accounts and, you know, value that they can hold and move around much more kind of cheaply and quickly, and kind of the impacts that would have. So it was really an exciting journey, and definitely a huge learning curve. And I think that was part of the thrill for me, to kind of just dive in, I think like everyone else, and really try to like absorb so much and understand it, but also kind of combine that with the perspective I had from my prior experience in the financial inclusion space.
Speaking about inclusion, ladies, what was that helped you feel included in terms of your new coming into the industry? What helped you feel comfortable when you joined the space? I'm asking this because definitely those who would like to join the space, I really need some advice and also reassurance from us. So Maria, you've talked a lot about how you feel good in the space. So what exactly did make you feel so good?
So in my opinion, this space is one of the most scaring, especially for women in the end, because we see that there are a few women there, but in the same time I never felt a more inclusive space, because since it's a new space for everyone, so it's not just new for us, it's new for us and for all of the rest of the people. We are all learning together. So everyone is super open, everyone is super helpful when I needed, since I'm a marketing figure, so sometimes I lack of technical knowledge, but I really want to understand what I'm telling to people. I asked, I have to ask to for example, developers, my colleagues, and I have always had a very good impression of the answers, never felt judged or ignorant. I think everyone really is learning together in this space, and this is what I love of it, and my suggestion, my advice for everyone is try, because you just need to see it how it is, and it is very, everyone is super kind and super smart. So when you are smart, you are also kind, in my opinion, most of the times.
I like this connection. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that others maybe have had a different experience in terms of inclusion. Though, like, I personally think that, well, it's not that there is a perfect industry and perfect community. But in general, it's true, even statistically. So the last World Economic Forum's gender gap report actually highlighted the blockchain industry as the most women friendly in terms of career opportunities out of all the emerging tech, even though the women in the emerging tech and the gender gap is a big problem. But blockchain industry seems to be the most open and inclusive statistically. Adeline, how about you, and what made you feel comfortable? What gave you the reassurance that you can be successful in the field?
I would say for me, just understanding the industry and reading as much as I could. I learned a lot. I mean, I read a bunch of stuff. I also really like YouTube videos. So I remember like any project that I didn't know about, I would just Google them and then watch people explain them to me on YouTube or explain it like I'm 5. But I think having that just base knowledge allows you to have better conversations with people. Then you understand, how different DeFi protocols work and how different systems work, and a little bit more about the history of different things. And I think that just baseline understanding gives you a foundation that you can build upon that makes you feel more confident in any type of conversation in the space.
If I can ask you to detail a bit which resources do you use while you read about the technology? What would you recommend maybe to those who would like to?
Well, of course, you have to weed through a lot of junk out there. We think we've all done that. I like Hashtoshi. I think he does a really good job of talking about projects. He's a YouTube person, and he's not very shilly. I think there's a couple of lists out there of the crypto Twitter people you should follow. So I would just recommend going on them and following a couple of those thought leaders and people. And then I think I know Block Geeks, if you're really intro, they have some introduction to blockchain, how that works. I think Gemini and Binance actually have some good SEO content that they've done about understanding the space, since they were trying to people to invest with them, but they also have really good academies and primers.
Vanessa, would you like to add some resources that you used when you joined the space and keep using maybe now? And what other tips you would like to share in terms of feeling comfortable while joining the space?
Yeah, so I want to piggyback on what was just said, because this is a decentralized, egalitarian type of space where the information is available everywhere, right? If you're a developer, this is like an open space, open source environment. You go on GitHub, you have access to the tech. If you need less technical guidance, you have projects that publish white papers. So from the get-go, everyone was very open about the information. So there was no opportunity to create sort of the wall-gardened networks, and usually male-dominated networks that sort of were exclusionary of either other women or other gender diverse or other diverse profiles. And so I think that openness about the information and the fact that you can contribute with your ideas rather than just as an individual, I think is key to what the space is. In terms of more mainstream information, I think each project publishes a lot of information on their Medium posts, etc. I think the outlets, the blog, Cointelegraph, etc., are of course a great source of information. I think Twitter is amazing. There's a lot of noise, but look at the big influencers on Twitter that have large followings and large projects. You'll learn a lot. And then there's a lot of Telegram groups. Again, it's a mixed bag. You have to be careful. But what's great also is that you can connect directly with people. You have their Twitter handle, you have their their Telegram handle, they will answer. They will be willing to connect. So, you should feel, encouraged to connect with existing projects that you like. Of course, if you like any of the Coin Fund projects, feel free to reach out to me. But that people will answer and be very reactive in the space, and that's pretty exciting.
Awesome. I'm glad that you share the same opinion. I also know that there are so many wonderful men in the space who are actually very open to inclusion and diversity. And sometimes they even, they don't know what to do actually to involve more women. So I think being a woman who wants to bring something new to an existing project needs to be also open and be ready to pitch and to talk with these people who are obviously not all of them, but the majority of them are open to new ideas. Lane, what about your educational background? How did you feel? I suppose surrounded by so many men. What did give you confidence moving forward, not only participating in existing projects, but also co-founding yours?
It certainly took a deep sense of comfort with discomfort. So this has been mentioned a couple of times, but nobody knows in the space, even now, years later, and just being comfortable with not knowing is really important. The team helped make me comfortable helping and letting me engage in conversations, testing my learning, and really engaging in the conversation and not just asking the question was awesome. And I would really encourage anyone to do that. If you are joining this panel today and as a participant, you probably know more already than you think. So just be willing to tell people what you know and ask questions and answer their questions. But I certainly, the educational background is a good point. I went back and studied. So I guess my take on what resources are the most important is, before diving into anything, understand the level at which you need to understand. It's really easy to go too deep too early in the space. And so if you want to go deep, there's really good lectures from universities. Berkeley and Princeton especially put out really good lecture series. At least a couple of years ago, they were great. GitHub and the white papers that you'll find there are really good if you want to go more into the technical side. If you just want to understand how things fit together, Googling any series of questions and reading the first Medium post, there's some really prolific writers in the space, and they pull together really great pieces on sort of how everything fits together. And for strategic insight, I actually look always to our investors. So we've had some really, really great leads. A16Z puts out phenomenal blog content that I would recommend to anybody if you want to go sort of get a long-term sense of where things are headed. And then Coin Fund for news, of course. We have Vanessa here with us gratefully, and that has always been my source of crypto news and probably will be for a very long time.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I see that a lot of links already have appeared in the chat. And I know that Gina and the Oasis team actually will be sending out all the links and useful resources for all the participants. And I think this is also a really great initiative, because another problem that we can find in the space is being overwhelmed by the ocean of information, news, and maybe sometimes not very correct information. So Lisa, could you please share your tips, but also how do you deal with this flow of information? How do you filter what exactly is needed for you to make your steps forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, my tips, I would reiterate what Vanessa and Lane and Adeline, everyone said. I have very distinct memories of my first month working at the Stellar Development Foundation, making flashcards and kind of having all of these, new definitions and terms that I was trying to learn. And, I think fundamentally, we have this phrase in the crypto space, do your own research, and it's typically involved in making investment decisions. But I think it's also kind of more broadly, to Vanessa's point, there's information out there. And so, it is a much more open ecosystem in that way. It's accessible. And so you have the opportunity to kind of educate yourself, which is really exciting, but it is a lot. And so I guess my two pieces of advice would be, you know, don't be afraid to come at this space with a perspective, or come at it with an area of interest that you're really curious about. Like, you don't have to understand everything. For example, you know, I am somewhat technical, but I'm not an engineer, I'm not a developer. I really like thinking about theory, economic theory, the social political implications, the business models. And so I tend to get like really involved and deep into people who write about those ideas, or kind of those are the conversations that I like to engage in. I also have within my network of friends people who are much more kind of into the details of the finance, and like love to kind of understand the DeFi space and like all of the economic models to create all of the yield, who knows where it's coming from, but, you know, like that really kind of get jazzed up about that, or, you know, that are really deep into the Bitcoin protocol and kind of the future of that. And I will look to them when there's information that I need in kind of those sectors. And so I guess it's not just like all one giant sphere. There's different areas of dialogue and areas of development within this space. And I think I try to understand what my strength is and kind of like go and like get a lot of knowledge there, and then also build a community of people around me that I know have strengths in other areas. And just on the confidence thing, it's kind of in that same theme. For the blockchain space to be successful, we need new perspectives. And I think that is this very, very fundamental thing for any new entrant, especially a woman, to understand, to give her confidence. I was really lucky that Jed said this to me, Jed, the co-founder of the SDF, said this to me very early. You know, he didn't see my lack of understanding in blockchain as a weakness. You know, he could teach me that, and it was more like, you have all of this other understanding about these other areas that we need to understand in order to make this technology relevant. So be confident in like your marketing skills or your finance abilities or your business skills, because that is what is needed to take this step forward, and then enjoy the ride learning everything else, because it's fun.
Golden words, Liza. Yes, thank you so much. I totally agree that new perspectives is actually what makes this this world so exciting and promising, and the fact that we do not have biases also in terms of our education actually helps us find new ways of applying the technology, and this is really amazing. I would like to ask everyone who is watching us, please post your questions to the Q&A section, just because I'm afraid that I will lose your questions in the chat. So before I lose this message, I would like to ask a question from Angie, who actually, this is the question that I wanted to ask you, but she definitely formulated better than I would have. So what was the most challenging situation you ever faced in the industry? Who would like to start? If you want, I can just mention one situation that I had a couple of years ago. So it was 2018, just after the first bullish market of Bitcoin, and I've been working with an author, with a writer, and his name was Chris. And then, like in 3 months, I actually discovered that it's a woman, and she didn't want to write under her real name, because she didn't think that she would be considered as serious as if she was using a male byline. And I found it really, well, embarrassing. And I don't think that the problem persists now, but it's true. And I have some colleagues from the space who still think that technical analysis can be properly done only by men who have spent all their time in life just, I don't know, coding and make an analysis of code and do not spend time on other things that women do. And so they lose time on serious things by doing this. A tip to overcome this, well, definitely do not be afraid of sharing your name, just because can you imagine how many other women maybe are working under male pseudonyms because they think that this would make a difference. It's not true. There are so many women, great women, wonderful women, inspiring women.
Actually, Kristina, I'm going to give you a challenge too. Maybe sometimes, like, if there's a way to make your name more gender neutral to start, though, when you're first getting in, unfortunately, there is this bias. And I'm like, and so I don't know, maybe a challenge to you is like, is that, should they, like the studies have shown, right? Resume after resume, if you have like a Black sounding or woman sounding name, you're less likely to call back. So maybe it is something people do, or give themselves a nickname for a while until they built up a credibility. And
interesting tip. Yeah, we can also use
different. Trying to make it more dynamic here.
And I can take a stab at it. I think I'm thinking from the hiring perspective. I think this space is challenging because it's growing so fast and everyone is grabbing every talent they can find. And if you look at the existing pool of talent and networks, there's only 30% of women who graduate from computer science in the US. So that pool is small. And then out of that, I don't know how many women jump into the blockchain space. And so, the way that projects have been recruiting is through their network. And so the natural pool of outreach was just very similar profiles and gender similar profiles. And so we have to break out of this, but that requires a lot of effort and the capability to embed that in your process when you hire, and really make an effort and really, put a line in the sand and saying, I cannot not have a diverse candidate in my pipeline of candidate. I cannot hire until I have that. And not saying like we should hire women because they're women. Like, you need to have people on equal footing of the opportunity. And so I think that's a real challenge for the industry. I'm sure you've seen that in other tech and emerging tech space, but that is something that collectively we need to make an effort on.
Any other challenges, obstacles that you've encountered as a woman, or maybe in general as a newcomer?
Yeah, I would mention something, I don't know, it's maybe a little bit comical, but also serious. I think I was most aware of my gender at conferences. And there's a lot of events in the crypto space. Like, I feel like it's about to get started again, but the blockchain industry, for a lot of sometimes complex reasons, just loves their events. And, that can be intimidating when you walk into a room of 1,000 people and, you feel maybe only 10% of them are women. And I'd also say the challenge was sometimes I really, there's like a lot of testosterone in the room when at these types of events, and they can feel very competitive. And so like, it was a challenge for me. It was learning how to feel myself and kind of also feel powerful. And sometimes these like very masculine charged events that were also important for me to be successful in and do my job and like show up. And, so I don't have any specific tips because I think this is, probably like pretty personal, but I definitely value being like having female colleagues or within my network at these events that I can sometimes talk to, or doing other things. But it can be intimidating when you're kind of physically in that space and you feel the difference. So that's a challenge.
Oh, but so true. Role models and also communicating with your role models is so important, and it's such a big inspiration and motivation. Lane, I would like to direct you the next question from the audience. I had an experience where I was trying to develop an app and I was the only woman on the team. I felt they didn't take the project serious and made my concerns futile and made it seem like I didn't understand the conversation technically. Do you have any advice on how to have conversations with technologists while being non-tech and a woman?
That would certainly answer the last question about challenges. Yeah, I face that more often than you'd think after being in the space for 3.5 years and working with the same team. So what I have, I think Adeline made a really good point about the fact that these biases do exist, unfortunately. And so working within bias and developing your own skills is something that you have to do pretty tactfully. And for me, it's always bring it back to the problem. What are you here to do? What are you here to solve? And what exactly needs to happen? And often the technical details of that are never, more often than not, they shouldn't be brought into the conversation in any case. And when they are brought into the conversation, it's out of well, you don't know about that thing. So let me just like slam some technical thought onto you and then shut you up. And it's like, well, no, what are we here to do? What's the problem that we're solving? Who is it for? Why do they care? Why is it going to matter to the audience? The technical details of that can always be left to the technical teams, and they should be empowered to be left with the technical teams. I personally now work with the more technical teams, and so it would be, if it was in the nitty gritty of it, I would still be in that conversation. And it's, I think it goes a long way to just ask thoughtful questions. Like, you can admit the things that you don't know, and it often is very well received if you're willing to ask the question and admit to what you don't know, but holding your ground on, this is what we're here to do, and the way that is achieved the technicality is always a detail, is really important. So I would just encourage you to like stay true to your purpose and always bring the conversation back to your purpose, and be very willing to ask questions, but don't let somebody put you in a place where you feel both like you're not qualified and they're not going to help you. If they're on your team, then they need to be invested in helping with you. And if that doesn't happen, then like, frankly, probably find another group of people to work with, because that's not really acceptable in 2021 for them to not be willing to answer your questions.
Yeah.
So true.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Vanessa.
Yeah, I wanted to add, I think there's a combination of like technical focused groups who will only listen to technical expertise, combined with the fact that there is less women in the technical teams and that they tend to gravitate towards design and, HR or finance or biz dev. And so bridging the gap between not only the subject matter expertise and then the gender gap is important. And I think, technical teams today who are not thinking thoroughly about design, the project implementation, and the business outlook will not be in a great place. It's great to when you're in execution mode, but you need all those dimensions to be successful. And I think what you just mentioned about being part of a team and bringing that forward is super important, because if they're not giving you the information or not taking feedback, you make the team less successful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would also like to highlight that, well, every new industry needs different experts, and it's not only about tech, not at all. Actually, if you check the success of the most successful startups in, I don't know, Silicon Valley, what did they have that other companies didn't have? A team. And usually team, it's not just one founder, because a person just can't do everything together. There are different types of people. There is a wonderful theory, Trinity of Management, that I'm personally a fan of. So Trinity of Management does mean that there are people who are more fond of creating product. There are others who prefer marketing, communications, PR, and are those who bring the product to the world. And there are those who love and are prone to creating order. So financial and legal order of any project. And the key to success of every startup is actually this trinity that sometimes can be found in one person, but normally is not. So blockchain space definitely needs not only tech experts. Maria, I have this wonderful question from a man whose name is Stanislav Maula. What should and could men in the space do to ensure that it becomes more inclusive? I really like this question, and thank you very much for asking
me
it.
Too. So I think that nothing special to make you feel different from the other in the room. So as we heard from the others, for example, Lisa mentioned this feeling that you have when you are talking as a female in this room, plenty of men. Sometimes I went to, especially in the first year, I went to some events where I looked around and I only saw men. And when you are and you know you are a nice girl and you smile, etc., sometimes you feel a bit, you know, in a jail full of lions. So a man should be aware of it and should treat you like he treats the other in the room, but in the same time with a gentle approach, because another thing that I experienced when I joined firstly was my boss treating me a bit in a hard way, and then he realized that I am a girl, and sometimes it could be not easy to accept critiques, and the critiques arrive to me in a harder way maybe than a boy, a man. But then I also learned. So I mean, the man needs to be aware, but also as women needs to be also aware that you don't have to feel bad about critiques because they are treating you. Sometimes it's even better because they are treating you like they would treat in the same way another man, another teammate. No, so it's a mutual thing, but yeah, this is my thought about it.
Thank you, Maria. Well, we have so many wonderful questions, and I hope that we'll also answer some of them in the next panel. Ladies, for the moment, last question. In one phrase, I already lost it in the chat, so I would reformulate, and sorry, I can't name the person who asked that. Which piece of advice would you give to your younger self when you was joining the space? Whoever wants to start. Lisa.
I was going to say buy Bitcoin. Yeah, what advice would I give? Just like lean in, like I think I had a lot of fear when I first got started, and I felt the imposter syndrome was very real for me. And so it probably took a solid, year to 18 months for me to kind of be like, actually, I'm really adding value here. Like I'm helping push this boat along the river. And so I think maybe I could have done that even faster if I had just kind of like had more confidence and known that earlier. So yeah, I mean, yeah, buy Bitcoin and lean in is probably what I would like to tell myself in 2016.
Vanessa.
So I like the buy more Bitcoin or more Ethereum. I definitely, and I think financial empowerment of women in the space and what the space does is kind of incredible. I would say manage, I don't think it's related to gender, but ensure that, you know, the relationships that you build carry forward in a great way for either the company that you work for or in the future for the space. I think being a federator or being a group leader and connecting everyone is something I wish I had more time to do, especially in the women's group.
Awesome. Last minute, Lane, your motto.
I would have told myself earlier that it was okay to not know. So sort of similar to Lisa's point that you're an expert earlier than you think you are. You're adding value earlier than you think you are, and it's okay to not know. And it kind of comes back to the adage about like men will apply for jobs that they only fulfill 50% of the requirements for, and women will wait until it's 100. Nobody in this space understands 100% of what's going on. I can tell you that with great certainty as someone who's, you know, would probably be on the list of people who know what's going on. There's just so much. There's so much to know. There's so much that's changing. There's so much that will evolve. Just give yourself permission to learn and to fail and to not know, because there will be no good time. The best time is today, right now, if this is a change you want to make in your career. And just let yourself do that. Let yourself do it without feeling bad about not knowing enough, because I think that is something that all of us can fall trapped to, but women especially.
Awesome. Adeline.
I'll just keep it quick. I think, like Lane said, just keep learning, go to events, watch things, come to, you know, panels like this and immerse yourself. And I think then you'll just have that more of that confidence to speak your mind and be part of these conversations.
Thank you. Maria.
So my motto is this: you feel firstly like a monkey in a jungle, but if you stay there and you fight, you will become a tiger for sure.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. We will have a very short break and we'll get back with another wonderful panel in a few minutes. Thank you for staying with us.
Thanks.
Take some tea, coffee, I don't know, spritz, whatever.
Yeah, we're going to be back in a couple of minutes as we have our panel 2 speakers joining. Also, in the meantime, I would just like to mention that after the event, we're going to be sending you an email with the recording of this meeting and you know, links that our wonderful team has shared so far and useful resources. So we're going to be gathering all info and sharing with you so that you can use it moving forward. And also, we have a couple of ideas on how we can continue the discussion through you know, communities and Telegram. So stay tuned. All of this is going to be coming to your mailboxes. Okay, I think we're ready to start panel 2. We're going to be activating videos for our speakers for panel 2. So let's see if everyone is ready.
everyone.
Hello.
Anna.
This is exciting.
We have Carrie, Anne, Cecilia, ready to go.
Nadia?
I'm ready. I just can't undo my camera. It's blocked.
I had the same issue.
Okay, we're gonna try once again.
Here we go.
And Bridget is with us, so I think we can kick off. So, Kristina.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. Okay, so hi again, everyone. And I'm really happy and excited to introduce you my next wonderful group of speakers. So we'll have today Cecilia Shapiro, investment advisor at UNICEF. Hi, Cecilia.
Hi, Kristina.
Where are you joining us from?
I'm based in New York, but joining from Argentina.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wonderful. Adding new continents to our discussion. Awesome. Nadia Hewitt, project lead, data for common purpose initiative and blockchain at the World Economic Forum.
Thank you, Kristina. Hi, everybody. I'm joining, well, I'm between San Francisco in California and Savannah, Georgia right now.
Awesome. And Fauvre, CEO of Oasis Labs, who brought to us this wonderful initiative. Hi, Anne.
Hey, yeah, thanks to everyone for being here and for being a part of this event. It's really awesome to see just all the folks who've joined, and the first panel was great. So excited for the second one to kick off. I'm coming to you from San Francisco.
Okay, Bridget Greenwood, founder of The Bigger Pie. Hi, Bridget, how are you?
Hello, thank you very much indeed for inviting me. I really enjoyed the first panel, so looking forward to our discussions here. I'm in the UK.
Awesome. European part. Okay, and last but not least, Carrie Wong, Director of Investor Relations at Pantera.
Yeah, so very nice to meet everyone. I'm excited to be here, excited to kind of build new friendships in the blockchain space. I'm joining from Lake Tahoe at the moment, but I am actually based out of San Francisco.
Awesome. I like this international selection. Ladies, I would like you to also tell your stories, but let's articulate this around the topic of our second panel that is called What's Next? What the future for blockchain? So how would you evaluate the potential of blockchain out of your current projects, and how do you see it developing within your projects in the next months, years? I don't know. What plans do you have? And I suppose that some of this should be related to how you joined the space in the first place. So what ideas did you have when you joined so that you will reach your goals? Okay, let's start with Nadia.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I did not come from a technology background. So for those of you who wants to get into blockchain, but think, what do I have to offer? I'm here today and I can tell you a lot. So I actually worked in the supply chain, logistics and shipping space. So I lived for many years in China, worked the factory floors of South China. I've done large infrastructure projects between Africa and South Asia. I've worked in the US in big retailers, so JCPenney, Target, like department stores, doing global supply chain optimizations and things like that. But with that, I have really, worked my way up from pushing documents to eventually lead profit and loss, and have covered sales, business development, operations, negotiations, procurement, you name it. And was part of sort of the whole digitization wave that started, almost a decade ago, but we've really been seeing the last 6-7 years, companies, public, private sector, those really looking at emerging technologies and digitization as a way to solve large social problems or business problems. And the moment I started reading about blockchain, I couldn't stop, right? Because I really understood what problems and pains it will solve and help to solve. So I then sort of positioned myself in a way that I could be really part of the digitization work that was taking place. And all of you at some point in time will get to work in the digitization. Any and every company today is impacted by that. So you position yourself accordingly. And from there, then I got an opportunity to start working in blockchain at the time with Maersk and IBM. They had this trade lanes solution that got rolled out, because blockchain is one tool in the toolbox of digitization. It's one piece that can enable new commercial models, business models, and really allows us to do things today in business that we weren't able to do before. Since then, I have started to work in many different projects at the World Economic Forum, looking a lot at technology governance. So really looking at the aspects of control, power, decision-making, really looking at centralized business models versus decentralized models, and what that all means. Right now, and maybe bringing it into Kristina's question around what does the future hold? Right now, I really am I'm looking at blockchain through the lens of data. So for those of you on the call thinking, how do I make blockchain relevant today to what I do? How do I make myself relevant in job interviews to bring in blockchain, and what can I offer? Who of you work with data today? Who of your roles touch data? I think everybody will put our hands up, right? Because data touches every industry, every role. So the issue is with blockchain, many of us come at it with a very black and white perspective. We think about, this whole solution is blockchain based, or this is a blockchain company. No, blockchain enables features, smart contracts, tokenization. It allows you to do things in many different aspects. So if you think about data, just to give you an example, and then I'll wrap it up and leave it for here now. To give you an example of data, how do you make that relevant to blockchain, and how do you make your experience and how you work today with data relevant? So with the direction that blockchain, and especially when you bring in other emerging technologies like AI, big data, connected devices, if you bring it, it opens up possibilities in sharing data in ways that weren't possible before. So you know what the issues with data is, data protection, right? A lot of companies are on the hook for how they share personal data. Other issues is the data is siloed, you can't get access to data. Essentially, it comes down to the questions, who is the right to data? What can they do with the data? Like not just what can they do, but what are they allowed to do with the data? And who gets the value of the data when you put data together and you combine insights? And that's where blockchain gets interesting. If you think about blockchain, tokenization, NFT might be an example where you can see how it helps us with digital rights management, attaching value. So if you think about that question, if you use some of the features that blockchain has, some of the capabilities that it unlocks, it can help us answer and build models that helps enable who is the right to data, what they can do with data, and who gets the value of data. There's some models out there, Tip the Farmer, some of you might know about. Those are examples of changes to business models, right? Tip the Farmer is where an end consumer of a cup of coffee can actually provide economic value to the origin source of the coffee. Like those type of models are examples of how you can bring in some of the things that blockchain and other technologies allows you to do in ways that we need to open our minds up to, and that will every business manager and every hiring manager should care about those things, because that's what's shaping the future of industries, whether you are in healthcare, sustainability, oceans, retail, finance. Those features will shape the future of those industries and make a difference. And the last thing I'll say to that is a way to differentiate yourself, and also where I see the future of blockchain is really making sure that you don't just look at blockchain, but you understand other emerging technologies. You invest time in artificial intelligence, machine learning, connected devices, big data, precision consumption, because I think there is a big future in sort of when you see the convergence of blockchain with some of these other technologies.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Nada, for handling all these questions. And yeah, tips for those who would ask questions. don't go my path and ask one question. This this is much more concrete. And Nadia actually is managing projects within the World Economic Forum that is one of the biggest, maybe the most influential business community in the world. And all these interesting technologies that she mentioned, I actually take part of this fourth industrial revolution concept. And I really recommend everyone to read World Economic Forum's materials on that, because this is really something exciting. And it's true that being in blockchain doesn't mean that we don't need to think about convergence with other technologies. So that's a very great point. Cecilia, I would like to ask you, who is working in another very much known outside of the blockchain and tech organization, so UNICEF, how do you see the potential of the blockchain technology for humanitarian sustainability? And how did you find applications for blockchain? What was your inspiration? And how do you see this developing in the future?
Yeah, thank you, Kristina. So for me, it was really a matter or a quest really to find efficiencies in the humanitarian sector. And as soon as I came to learn about blockchain and particularly about the benefits that the technology brings of transparency, security of data, as Nadia was talking about before, that really got to me because I am originally from Argentina, a country that has very high levels of mistrust in governments. And from a very young age, I really started working in humanitarian causes and organizations that wanted to address the different social issues that the country navigates. So I first fell in love with the approach of mixing the private sector models with social development. And I started an organization specifically working to empower and help scale the work of social entrepreneurs. And that led me to join UNICEF 4 years ago. And probably here everyone knows that UNICEF is the United Nations Children's Fund. But what many people don't know is that there's a team within UNICEF called UNICEF Innovation that works on exploring how emerging technologies and these new technologies that are appearing, how can those technologies positively impact the lives of children? So I joined this team to specifically focus on structuring the first UN investment vehicle to invest in open source emerging technologies. And very early on, we realized that there was a lot of potential in exploring how blockchain and investments in blockchain startups could help address some of the humanitarian sector goals that we have as the UN. So we started investing in different blockchain solutions. It's been a very, very exciting path ever since. And as Nadia was mentioning as well, there's a lot of applications that we may not hear about that much. I think when we talk about blockchain today, we're hearing a lot about, especially cryptocurrencies, especially about Bitcoin and the fluctuations in the currency, but there's a lot of humanitarian solutions where the technology can be particularly helpful, whether it is in supply chain, but also in education, healthcare, and the digitalization of governments, to just name a few. But the other thing that I wanted to also highlight in terms of me getting into this field, on top of my interest for efficiencies in this sector, we talk a lot about the lack of women in the space and how we try to encourage that. And I think that's necessary because unfortunately we are a minority, but there's also surely a responsibility with all the people within this sector, men and women, to bring more women into the space. So I would definitely highlight that one of the senior men from my team within the UN was one of the first advocates of blockchain within the UN and to explore how that technology could help us tackle the issues that we aim to solve. And he was one of the people that first empowered me to take on this new project of exploring how blockchain work could be explored through our UNICEF fund. So definitely, I think thinking about the future specifically, I think today, I think today one of the previous speakers in the previous panel talked about how there's a lot of surely explorations around blockchain, and I think today there's still for sure a lot of uncertainty into where this field is going to move forward. But I think surely in the future there'll be much more concrete proof, more applications, and we will surely leave the exclusive, let's say, Bitcoin world, and we'll definitely have more proof about humanitarian sector solutions. We at the UN are trying to power that, and we're working with many of the institutions also in the space to do this together, and explore how can we also gather some of the positive implications and the positive impact that the solution can take to the humanitarian sector. Yeah, maybe I'll stop.
Wonderful. Well, I find it really amazing that more and more important actors in the, like, let's put it, traditional fields are considering testing blockchain, because in the end, technology is nothing without people and without their ideas that they implement into the application of a technology. Anne, could you please share a bit of your story? How did you get to the space, and why are you keep going within the space?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'll start. So my background was mostly working for larger institutions. I'd worked right out of college. I worked for Madeleine Albright, the former Secretary of State in the U.S., doing foreign policy consulting and foreign policy political work. And then after grad school, went to Apple, where I was a PM for the iPhone. And one of the things that really attracted me to blockchain was perhaps things I'd seen in both of those, which is in both instances, you had really trusted and respected actors who were making decisions on behalf of people, but it made me realize how much trust we have in those institutions. And so, and it made me sort of think about, well, in instances where you don't have the same amount of trust, what happens? And so for me, blockchain, what so excited me about it was the ability for people to really own and control their destiny in many ways. And we're seeing that obviously on the crypto side now, just as a financial piece. But I think for me, what really drives me is something well beyond that, which is the idea that you can own and control your data, you can own and control the way that you use the information that's about you on the internet. So what particularly drove me to Oasis Labs was this combination of things where it's both using a distributed blockchain network and using privacy technology. And that seemed to me to really solve a lot of these challenges that we now give to companies. Like, I think Apple is a good actor. I think they are truly focused on user privacy, but you have to think that, and you have to believe that they'll continue to operate that way to feel comfortable with them holding your health information or holding a lot of your personal information. And I think the more I thought about it, the more I realized we shouldn't live in a world where we need to have that kind of trust in a company. It's a company. The last thing I'd say is when I think about then what really motivates me for the future, you know, there's sort of a long-term scale thing here, which is like, I'm excited about the world where we all own and control our destiny, as I said. But practically speaking, it's been really exciting over the last year and the last month to see a lot of growth in this way in really tangible ways. Like, I think the growth of the NFT market is a great first step in this direction, where we're seeing people take control and ownership of their data, in this instance, art again. And what I'm really excited about now is thinking about what that means for the next few generations of what NFTs are. I mean, you can imagine a world where not only are you able to sell and create some sort of true verifiable ownership over art, but what if you could, as a creator, sell and share true verifiable ownership of your creations in the future? What if someone could invest in you as an individual and your growth as a creator? All of these things I think are very possible in blockchain and Web3 in a way that they really aren't on the internet that many people use today. And so what I find really exciting about where the internet's going is that possibility. So yeah.
So many different directions. Wonderful. Bridget, tell us about your project and how do you see your place in the space?
So I came into the space because of Bitcoin and financial inclusion, and the understanding that 2008 was a financial crisis where we had trusted centralized systems that failed people. And here was something that was trying to suggest an alternative to that centralized system. I had a look around and I saw that there weren't very many women in the space. And I did some research on the women, and they are incredible. And this panel is a demonstration of exactly that. They have amazing career histories, ridiculously well educated, speak multiple languages, and they want to put their hand out to the next wave of people coming into the sector. They have amazing projects. We've heard why everyone has come into the space. And so I could see that we were going to have another generational transference of wealth. And I didn't want half the population to be left out just because they happen to be female. So where I see my role is, how can I hang out with these amazing women every day? And how can I also make sure that they are seen, that they are supported, that we recognize where the role models are? I mean, there was a woman who was responsible for inventing proof of work, but that's never mentioned. You know, we have a history of rewriting history that some people who were very important in what happened are left out. And so the role models that were there aren't seen. So I think it's really important that we're able to do that. And that means having women on stage, keynote speakers, on panels. It means being able to connect them more easily. One of the largest things that when I recently surveyed the community that we have of global leaders and learners across the world in the blockchain space, was when we're at events, and it's been mentioned today, please can we more easily connect with other women at the events? You know, there's a lot that we can do that doesn't take too much effort, and there's a lot that needs to be done that takes a lot more effort. And one of those is making sure that these amazing female leaders are funded so that they can, you know, have their vision taken off. They can hire. The phrase that I heard earlier was underestimated communities. I haven't heard that description before, but I think it's absolutely perfect. So many people are overlooked, and it's a missed opportunity for everyone. So in terms of where do I see the future, it was great. So I came in 2017. We had the hype cycle of Bitcoin going up to 20,000. And then we had what's called the crypto winter. And in that time, those who came in for a quick buck left, and those who came in because they saw the vision and because they wanted to build the rails that we needed for the next generation of institutions coming in, et cetera, stayed. And what the future holds is more of that. We've seen, as you reported, that emerging technologies, blockchain is actually perceived as one of the more female friendly. So more of that. And there isn't a pipeline shortage of talent coming in. So I know that Vanessa mentioned, you know, we do currently have a skew of men in the sector. So hiring diversity in terms of the gender lens is not as easy, but we do not have a pipeline shortage. So it's making sure that these women who are coming through can have the education, have the opportunities, and be connected to the employers.
So true, wonderful. Okay, Carrie, so what the future hodls for us?
Yeah, no, it's great. I love everyone's stories. My story really is around, so I grew up in banking. So I worked at Citibank and Barclays Bank for 10 years of my career. And I think what really attracted me to the industry was the innovation that I started to see in decentralized finance and open finance, right? Where now anyone in the world could potentially gain access to financial services as long as they had access to a cell phone. And so that was my favorite part about coming into the space, right? Just being able to see the type of innovation that we're seeing here today. We're already seeing a pretty good use case for financial products, right? And this is why we have such a big growth in DeFi at the moment. And so that's what I'm most excited about. I've been working in banking for 10 years. years, you realize that a lot of these banks are quite antiquated, right? A lot of the infrastructure that we have today dates back, hundreds of years potentially. And so now you have a peer-to-peer network, and you're making this available to anyone else in the world. I could potentially transact with anyone, in South Africa or, a developing country, is what I think is quite fascinating about what blockchain enables and what, crypto assets could potentially enable for the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Anne, so you've been a part of this mentorship event organizing. So which potential do you see of blockchain for women? And which potential do you see in women for the blockchain industry? Because I suppose that you had some concrete ideas while you conceived this idea in this event.
Yeah, so I'll say I don't want to take all credit for it. Our great head of marketing at the Oasis Foundation put this together. So let me give her due credit for this awesome event, Gina. What I will say is, more generally, one of the things that attracted me on a personal level to blockchain was how new it was. So when I'd come from a hardware background and was sort of ready for a more emergent technology field. And one of the reasons was I felt like entering a space like blockchain and crypto, everyone's learning at the same rate. And so there's no sort of entrenched or incumbent experts. And by design, that means that many men who may be incumbents in older industries or older versions of tech, you wouldn't have that sort of gender disparity in the same way. It was sort of everyone started at the same playing field. So that opportunity and that option is something that really attracted me as a woman to the space. I felt like I could make my mark in the same way. Now, what I'll say in reality is that's kind of true and kind of not, right? Like there's a lot of, there's a lot of secret groups, there's a lot of Telegram channels, there's a lot of sort of like private discussions that go on, and they're not by nature men, but they sort of like by practice are, tend to be very heavily driven by men, especially trading groups, for example. I think if you did a swath of many of the investors in this space, I'd say my guess is they're largely men. So a lot of those things have not netted out totally in reality. And I think it's really on all of us as people who found themselves in this space, and as much as anyone can claim they're an expert after being in it for as long as this industry has, to make sure there's room for the next generation and make sure people feel that it's less intimidating to join. So for me, it's really important that we have events like this. It's important that we continue to do education to make that feasible. I'll give a plug to Bridget. I recently joined the Bigger Pies WhatsApp channel, now Telegram channel, and I was blown away by how many women were in this space. Like, I didn't even know that myself. I think I've been working in a very siloed bubble of mostly men, and we have a woman CEO and many women in leadership. So it's been great to see that, and I think my hope is that events like this can continue to shine lights on groups that already exist, and we can help to invest more of our effort in propping them up even more. So yeah, just happy to be a part of this great community.
Great, thank you, Anne. I would like to delve a little bit into this topic of inclusion and think a bit of it more critically, because in my personal opinion, there are wonderful projects that are open to women, to different countries, to different backgrounds, etc. But at the same time, we are also a bit used to look at the world through the eyes of our personal backgrounds that usually are, I suppose here we are educated, coming from kind of wealthy countries. And having this kind of opportunities to join a group in WhatsApp, because this is already something that we always take for granted, joining a group in WhatsApp. How maybe Cecilia could help me answering this question. How do you see the potential of financial inclusion, but other types of inclusion given by the blockchain technology to involve more different representatives, also coming from the third world, from the spaces that are unbanked, coming from the spaces that are not having internet connection, and what we as community can do actually to involve them. Maybe those people are not now here at the panel, but this definitely, in my opinion, takes part of this idealistic vision that we all have of complete, total, decentralized financial inclusion. Well, I suppose, yes, Cecilia, please.
I mean, that's one of my favorite topics. So thank you for bringing that up. Surely, I mean, I come from Argentina, so well, thankfully, I made myself immigrate to New York and to the US, and I'm living surely exposed to so many new resources and luxuries, really, in terms of just opportunities that I wasn't exposed to in Argentina. But there's so much with what you said. I think first of all, there's a problem with connectivity and lack of access to connectivity as we move forward to a digital world, which is what we're having now. There's a very large proportion of the world that is being left behind, and social inequalities are being aggravated as we move forward. So I think like the topic of connectivity is so important, and it's one of the key priority topics within the UN with one of the initiatives we're trying to work upon to foster access to connectivity in developing countries. So that's one piece. Then you mentioned about the community. I think there's so many limitations with what COVID-19 generated, and I'm not going to go there to the problems and the issues, but there is a few things that are positive from this, which is the digital resources that are being made themselves available, because a lot of people that are able to be online are now online and are exchanging information and resources much faster than ever before. So the notion of being able to join these communities, joining a WhatsApp group, and now because everything is happening online, you don't need to be in New York. So for me, getting started within this field, it was super key and important for me to start this field of blockchain in New York. I guess I would just mention one example. We had Vanessa Grelet in the previous panel. I don't think she knows, but she actually invited me to the first panel I ever spoke on blockchain. I mean, she knows she invited me. She doesn't know it was my first one. But that was like 3 years ago. And I joined, and she organized a conference specifically about blockchain for social impact. And that was one of my first experiences. But now, thankfully, we don't have to be present there. And I think today this event is a very important example. We have about 100 people joining from different parts of the world. The panel itself is on different locations. So just having this exchange of ideas in one same place is so important. And we should surely take advantage of that as much as possible. And the last thing I would mention is surely the financial inclusion. I mean, definitely. I think there's so much potential to explore blockchain in that area. Surely, as I mentioned before, there's no certainty today. There's much more exploration than anything else. But I think there should be more and more exploration, because the more we explore, the more we'll find, and the more we'll be able to report and build upon and build on top of. I mean, I come from Argentina, a developing country where the unbanked population is more than the not unbanked, the banked population, where there's a very big gender disparity. Even my friends and my circles of educated women are still not involved in financial decisions, just because there's a cultural aspect on top of an asset aspect and possibilities. So I think going back to what Anne was saying, there's one piece on education and just understanding like what are the possibilities that you have out there? How can you have access to those tools? And again, today you may not need a bank account to, we say banked and unbanked, but tomorrow we may not need a bank to be financially included. And I think that's something that is super important that blockchain can give us. There's already a lot of examples. We're soon going to be investing with the UNICEF fund in startups tackling this particular issue. So stay tuned. I'll share that soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Cecilia. Yeah, that's definitely a very important topic. And I wouldn't maybe go further here, but just would like to mention that we in such an early stage of the development that a lot of things are unclear. And it also relates to this balance between our non-trust to some governmental institutions that several speakers mentioned today, and actually potential of the decentralized technology to handle this problem, because, well, still we are living in a world that is regulated by states in a lot of cases, and sometimes decentralized companies being registered in a country still have to apply to the rules of the country, and that applies, I don't know, trade embargo. And in my personal opinion, trade embargoes are non-productive for decentralized global development, just because who suffers in the end? Customers from these countries under sanctions. And this is only one example, but we have so many discriminative mechanisms in the world that definitely would be great to solve, but it takes time. So speaking about time, question from the audience, Charlini de Almeida, if there was one problem you could solve in the world, what would it be? I suppose the question relates to blockchain. Like, if there is one problem that you would like to solve and you think that blockchain has a potential to solve, what would it be? Someone?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. Well, there's extremely important problems, hunger and unemployment and many things. But I think for me, one is education. I'm from South Africa, so that's an area that I care about. And with blockchain, the question is, how do we make sure there's an inclusive approach to educating everybody to take advantage of these technologies in the future? And there was another question I saw in the chat from a TikToker and a blogger that said, what can I blog? What can I put out on social media that can help and encourage females? And I think I'll give you an answer to that. The reality is, yes, higher education is not accessible to all, but quality online learning resources could enable people to acquire certain digital skills. And in blockchain and other emerging technologies, there are many available. We need to work with governments to make sure that we formalize such non-conventional learning pathways, that it's not just a degree that counts, but that we can bring in online learnings in more formal ways to be recognized. So platforms such as, and I'm speaking now coming from Africa, in Africa, there are many available. So irrespective of where you are, and as you would know, most people today do have mobile phones and access to that. Platforms such as Data Science Nigeria, Zindi, BlockGeeks, and others, they make hands-on learning possible, right? Irrespective of where you are. And what I love about what like Data Science Nigeria and Zindi is doing, they're not just allowing you to learn and build a network. They actually have real businesses putting real problems and data sets available, making it available. So not only are you learning and practicing, you're also showcasing your skills and your job readiness with prospective employers, because it gives you an opportunity to work on real challenges and then have something to add to your resume. Another example is great lady Milena Marinova. This is more on the AI side, but basically a big problem is STEM education, right? It starts with young girls. How do we get young girls into STEM careers, especially from the parts of the world where quality access education is not available? Amazing. She actually have used AI to help teach and educate on STEM. So basically, a team of engineers, data scientists, and learning specialists, they made an app available, which again is available to anybody. Younger kids can start using it. It's called AIDA Calculus, and I'll put all of these names in the chat. But basically, it was built to give students instant step-by-step feedback and guide them to a solution through personalizing it, making it interactive, and also have relatable explainer videos. So basically, AIDA, using AI, learns what approaches works best for each student and through that provides them with some critical STEM education, math and other things in earlier life. So for those of you who have influence, I think using that to promote accessible and inclusive quality educational resources is a big thing, and encouraging and inspiring others to do so. I saw in the previous group, there was a lot of names mentioned of online resources. I'm a huge supporter of those, and I always try to speak and add content, but I'm also cautiously optimistic. I've been a speaker or been asked to provide educational content to some of these, maybe that over the last 2 years, blockchain.com type of, and I don't know if there is a blockchain.com, I'm just using it as a, and some of them don't do quality checks. They literally are so pushed to just keep on pushing content out there. And that I have sometimes been a little surprised that they just like, okay, you'll jump on tonight and talk about this topic and no check. And I've seen sometimes some hyped information being put out there. So while I really do encourage as well, taking advantage of those, I always tell people, invest. If you want to learn about blockchain, it's worth it at the very beginning to invest in one quality structured training, because it's so overwhelming out there. Where do you reading everything? It doesn't make sense. Take the time, do a quality structured program that just gives you the basis, that gives you the structure that you need to then after that be able to take advantage of all the resources out there, and will enable you to also cut through the hype and the nonsense a little bit more, because there is unfortunately still too much of that out there.
So true, Nadia. I think you highlighted a very important point. And I personally find it both challenging and reassuring. I mean, if I don't read blockchain related news for a week, I mean, I feel totally lost. I think even if it never happened, but even if I'm not reading it for like 5 hours, I usually miss something very important. And I find it exciting because, well, it does mean that the industry is developing at such a pace that you can always hop on the train. But it also does mean that you always need to be like eyes open here, ears open, and always ready to sponge more information. There is a wonderful question from the audience that I would like to address now. Seeing the recent developments in the blockchain industry, how do business and their various projects adapt to the changes? So I think going only through the educational topic is not enough here. How do the businesses adapt their strategies? And do you have any tips for businessmen and specifically businesswomen to be always on the top of everything, every update and change in the industry? Bridget.
I think Anne was going to do a response to that. So Anne, I'll let you go first, and then if there's anything else to add, I'll go on to that.
No, I'd say, I mean, we spend a lot of time on this issue, so maybe I'm eager to jump in here. I think, look, we're hitting a new precipice of innovation, and companies who don't invest in new technologies will fall behind. We've seen this many times before. I think if I were coming from a company debating how to integrate this, I would invest in a team that understands Web3, and I would be actively, and not only in some sort of research way, but very actively trying to figure out how to put crypto and how to put blockchain into the bottom line of my product. This is a huge change. We're seeing a huge shift in control and ownership. People, and we're seeing this even beyond crypto. We're seeing, companies like Instagram and Twitter give more and more control to their creators and to the users that are on their platforms. We're seeing this in government where, frankly, we're finding that people are operating and organizing in more decentralized ways. If companies don't take advantage of that, they'll get totally run over. So if I'm a company, I'm finding a way to put crypto into my bottom line because I'm really missing out on some investment opportunity just from holding my own treasury. 2, I'm getting a team on board now to understand how to integrate decentralized technologies. And I'm not talking about just investing in infrastructure or thinking about it or doing long-term research. I'm talking about what can I change in my product today that will drive more users and more usage to my product because I've integrated this technology. you know, we have these big companies that we see as innovative now, Google, Facebook, Twitter, they're all going to be totally left behind by the next generation if they don't invest in this now. So yeah, that's my strong sense here. And for women, I'd say, like, you know, just for the same as male businessmen here, like, learn about it, start investing in it, be at the forefront here. This is not going away. And so it's a great opportunity to be ahead of the curve still.
Carrie, you want to add something?
Yeah, so I'm at Pantera Capital, and we're an investment firm, and we fund blockchain projects. And I think what's interesting, if I kind of zoom out, is I speak to investors all day long, and there's still a pretty big wealth gap between men and women, right? So if I'm spending a lot of time with these investors, I would still say the majority of the time I am speaking to male investors. And so what I would like to see happen, especially for this industry, is to help women kind of think about their wealth and think about how we can continue to build that. Because I think right now, if we look at kind of the trends, right, and if I look at the metrics on men versus women, it's still a pretty wide gap. And so I love the opportunity to be here with this group here today, because I'd love to be able to kind of take some projects back to our investment team and have them continue to invest in women founders, women leaders, and continue to help us build our ecosystem. Because I do feel like, even to your point earlier, I do still feel like we are kind of working in silos, right? We're all kind of doing our things. And I really love to kind of continue to build our community to help each other out. Because I think that is one thing that I'm missing. When I joined this industry, I was new to it, and I was trying to learn as much as possible. And I went to every event I could. And again, it's still like mostly men at these events. And so whatever we can do here with this group, like, I'd love to kind of offer out and be a resource to young women who is starting to look at the space, who would love to learn, and offer out additional resources and guidance to help kind of lessen this gap that I see. And I think that's kind of near and dear to my heart, just because I see it and it's in my face every single day.
Gosh, it's so important, and I just feel your energy, ladies. That's so wonderful. And I also think that all this year that actually made us digital, like 100%, gave us this opportunity also to be together. Because, well, can you imagine an event like this a year ago? Well, already a year and a half ago. No, because, well, we should have been in person in order to have the audience, etc. Bridget, I would like to ask you about this adaptation toward the changes in the blockchain space in terms of communication, in terms of personal brands, in terms of the branding of your company, in terms of your social presence, in terms of maybe interaction. I would like your take on that.
Do you mind if I build on a couple of things that both Anne and Kerry said on the last one? So I think in terms of any company being able to be viable in the future, we have so much change coming at us faster, more consistently all the time. So I think there's definitely a switch to not just blockchain and understanding crypto and having some control over your treasury, but as it was mentioned on the previous panel, I think it was perhaps Vanessa who said that this blockchain and crypto doesn't stand alone. It's how do we adapt it across all the emerging technologies. So that's an incredibly important part. But why? We're not just adopting technology for the sake of it. And I think this shift from the shareholder to the stakeholder being the focus, to us being much more sustainable in how we build and how we serve whilst building profits. I think those are the businesses that we will see flourishing in the future, rather than those who are more of an extractive nature and just looking at profits. And when it comes to being able to support women and getting more females founded, absolutely, Carrie. there are two major issues that have bias as to why female founders don't get funded. And one is they don't have the same network as men. And you know, Carrie, better than most people, that investors tend to like to have a warm introduction. And so if we as women don't work together very hard to be able to really network together, so we could make sure that the presentation, the business plan, the pitch deck is put on the table for people to look at. That's one thing that we absolutely need to do. And then the second thing is, during that pitching process, there's been studies that show that there are indeed biases in the way that the women are asked questions. So it's something called prevention questions over promotion questions. But here's the great thing. You can learn how to answer a prevention question with a promotion answer. So there are things that we can do as women to be able to help us within the existing structure. And I also think that we need to find, you know, if the men have the wealth, and that's where it is, we need to be able to find a way that women can put their wealth on the table as well. So those are really interesting things. In terms of the question that you asked me, in terms of communication. I think
you already started asking, actually, because it's also, it relates to the communications, very important.
Yes, so, well, everything that we do is around communications, isn't it? And I think that rightly or wrongly, there is a feeling that when we have women in the tech sector, they're in the PR and the communication sector. And for somehow or other, that doesn't hold as much weight as a C-suite to be a CMO as it does to be a CFO or a CTO or whatever it might be. But we need to understand that without communications, nothing happens. So I think if anyone's looking at getting into the industry and they're not necessarily in communications, it is understanding how can you be seen? How can you increase your network? How can you be relevant to the people that you're interested in? And there are various ways to do that. So you, in our network, for example, with the Bigger Pie, I know for a fact, and it's the same most places, there is maybe top 10% who are the noisiest. And then you've got some people who show up every now and again. And then you've got a whole bunch of people that don't leave a footprint where they are until they suddenly pop up or respond to something or they show up to an event. And I think that it's important that you should work with what talents that you naturally have, but do make sure that you are visible. That's in the way that suits you best. There are different ways to do it, but do make sure you're visible. And also the mentoring is very important. Let other people make sure that you can be seen too. That's what we can really do and what men can do for us as well.
So true, and now there are so many new opportunities actually to be visible, and it's definitely not so simple to explore all these opportunities, and it's also a sort of different comfort zone for us to make sure that we have this social presence needed, Twitter, etc. And also, in my opinion, the level of the communication within the blockchain space is totally different compared to like traditional industries, just because, well, you can be contacted at any time of the day on your WhatsApp or Telegram by a founder of a company that already has billions of dollars on its market cap, and you will be like, oh my gosh, because before, like 10 years ago, I don't know if you were working with a bank, you had to pass through like 100 bureaucratic steps before getting to the person who really makes decision. And our space is totally different. So you have to be like, it's open source, it's accessible, but at the same time, you have to be ready at any time to be communicating directly with those who actually make difference, who make decisions. We have 5 last minutes, and I would like you ladies to make a wish for all those wonderful girls, but also boys, who would like to join the industry and be successful and make a difference. Whoever wants to start. Anne.
Yeah, I'll say, I'll build on what we were talking about before. My most practical advice for folks, if you're interested in getting in this industry, is just join a protocols community. I mean, I'll tell you, like, I'll speak for Oasis. We're constantly desperate for more people who are interested and excited to join. And that's not for lack of interest, but just because we're growing so fast. And this is true for every major layer one, most DeFi projects, any decentralized project. Like, the whole point is that you want many people with many backgrounds involved in these projects. all these programs also have really strong grant programs. I can tell you, we have one that, a couple weeks ago was valued at 1.5 million. Now it's much more than that because it's tied to tokens. We have a special grant that we've partnered with SpareX on that's specifically for women developers and something being built in that space. And like, please take advantage of those. There's a lot of opportunity here to get involved in a project, dive in and get paid while you do it as well, so that your time is worthwhile. People want you involved, and there's a lot of opportunity to learn here. So my best and biggest advice is just dive in, join a Slack channel, join a Discord, ask questions. People will be thrilled to have you, I promise.
That's a good one. And yes, echoing that, for me, as blockchain and other emerging technologies, it brings opportunities, but guys, it brings a lot of risk as well. I mean, I'm staying up at night sometimes thinking about the issues. And one issue particular is the biases that we have in designing. If you think about toys, right? Especially bias is almost more prevalent right now in AI, but blockchain, all of, and that's where we need females. That's where we need diversity. So maybe if you come from a different ethnical group or country or area, that's a huge value proposition that you bring. And you need to sell that value proposition to hiring managers and others, because if they want to design products for the future that caters to their consumers, and females are the ones many times buying for the households, if we want to make sure that we are designing responsible solutions that we want to pass on to our kids, we need everybody's voices included in that to help against any such biases during the design and development process.
Thank you, Nadia. Bridget.
Everything that the whole panelists are saying, and remove the word young, because I came into this in my mid to late 40s. We need women in leadership positions and transferable skills. So I would invite you to act now, do not wait. We've already heard that men will go for a job if they have 20% of the skills, women wait for 80%. Another way it was told to me is men will apply for a position 2 years before they're ready. Women will wait until 2 years past they're already prepared. And imagine 4 years, how much that industry is going to be built and shaped without you. So I don't care how old you are. If you're interested, I'd love you to step forward.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Thank you, Bridget, for noting this. That's definitely has much sense. Carrie.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing is that, like, look, when I was young in my career, I had reservations to speak up, right? That was kind of the biggest drawback, even though maybe like my thoughts and my ideas were stronger, I just never shared them. So I encourage women to kind of speak up, because I think one of the things that has been really helpful in terms of my own development in my career, even at Pantera Capital, is I had a seat at the table, right? And there were times where I sat down with management and I was the only woman when it was like 5 other people in the room, and my voice was heard. And so join teams that are willing to hear what you have to say, and don't be afraid. Don't think that your answer is stupid or, underestimated, because I'll tell you what, 100% of the time, my ideas were better than everyone else. So I encourage everyone to kind of speak up and share everything that you have to offer.
Great words. Thank you, Carrie. Cecilia, your last.
All of the above. I'm so inspired after hearing my peer panelists. I think I've learned so much from them, from their background, and I agree with all of the points they mentioned. Just to bring something new, I would say for the others coming in, or for the people in this industry already, I would say fall in love with the problem you're trying to tackle. I think blockchain is so fascinating. I'm so curious to keep exploring and learning more from the industry. But I also want to prevent this issue where you fall in love with the solution instead of the problem. There's so many issues that need to be solved with blockchain, and the users that are using these platforms don't really care about blockchain, about if it has blockchain or doesn't have blockchain. They just care about the solution. Like, is this solution letting me be finance or access to finance, even though I don't have a bank account, you know, like I think it's a bit more basic. So fall in love with what you're trying to explore and what you're trying to tackle. See if blockchain can help you get there, and yeah, change with the environment, because things are changing so fast. So you need to keep up and see how to do it better.
So many wonderful words and inspirational mottos. I would just like to add that difference is our power. And no matter whether we talk about gender, age, background, language we speak, education, level of, I don't know, literacy, everything is our power, because we can move forward, learn more, and bring our difference to create more diversity in the space. And that is what will make difference in the world that we and next generations will live in. Thank you so much for organizing this wonderful event. Gina, Andrew, all the Oasis Labs team, all the wonderful panelists and speakers, and all the wonderful audience that has listened to us, left your comments and participated in discussions. That's really so powerful. And I am sure that all of you now feel this through the screen, seeing only our eyes. Thank you so much.
We thank you, all of you, for taking the time. Thank you, Kristina, for hosting such a wonderful discussion. As I said before, we're going to be sharing with all of you an email over the next few days with useful links and resources and how we can continue this discussion. So we're very happy and honored that we had all of you with us today. And it's up to us to make something bigger out of this. So we're really excited. Again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And we're going to be in touch for sure. We will be sending more ideas and ways to continue the dialogue.
Thank you so very much.
Everyone,
have a nice day or evening, depending on where you are. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.